This video is a part of a free chapter from my new course, The Blendinator. Click the links in the description to learn more. And you can see the result also that we're going after. So here is our masks. And we're going to use this information to get rid of the markers on our face. So let's actually start parenting some of these to our trackers. And the reason why we do this with our trackers is so that we can let the trackers do most of the work for us. So we come to this marker here in the middle of my head, shift right click to set the 3D cursor, and then shift A to add in a circle. And we can scale that down. And to parent these points to this tracker, we can just select the tracker. Now be careful, because if we have it like this and we try to select the tracker, sometimes we can accidentally just select these points instead. So it's probably best that before you add these, I'm just going to delete this, before you add it, select the tracker first and then add in the circle after. Because everything will be selected, and then we can parent it, and all we have to do is come to parent or press Control P. And now if we scrub through the timeline, let's find our cursor here, you can see it follows that tracker. Now keep in mind that each individual point here is parented to the tracker, not the spline itself. And we can't see this over here. So if you look down here, there's nothing here because we don't have an active selection. We have an active spline, but we don't have an active point. So if I select a point, now you can see that the active point is indeed parented to track 18. And to see the name of this track, we can just come up to Clip Display, Info, and this is indeed track 18. And I can select on each of these, and you can see all of them are parented to track 18. To clear the parent, I can click Clear here, or the shortcut Alt-P, or I can click this X here, and then it is now unparented. And now when I move this, the other points move with it, but this point does not. Let's go all the way back to the end again, and then I will parent that again so that it is parented to track 18. So that is how that works. So as you can see, we scrub through here. The trackers are doing most of the work for us, which is really nice. However, we are going to start to have to babysit them when they reach the edge of my head as it turns. So to help us out with this a little bit, what we can do is, let me set up my markers here, because I know I had one at 490, so that was when my head was looking straight at the camera. We're going to put that one there. And then I know another one was 540, and then I want to do one or two more, again when I'm looking straight at the camera here, and then when I'm looking to the right over here. Let's do that one. All right, so don't forget to save your work as you go. I'm going to go to frame 490 here. And then what we can do is come to tracking here. Now we can't do it by going to a different workspace. We have to do it in the same workspace. But on tracking with this selected, I can press L to make sure the view is locked to this tracker. Come back to mask. And then that way, when I scrub through the timeline, that's always centered. If it's not centered, just middle mouse to center it, and then it should stay right there. The next thing we want to do is uncheck Show Disabled and also Info for now. We don't need to see the path, and we don't need to see the pattern either. But what I'm going to do is right click on this pattern and then click Assign to Quick Favorites. And now if I just press Q, we have a quick favorite, and then we can turn those on and off really quickly. So that's really helpful. So let's turn them off, and then we can scrub through the timeline, and this is good until maybe around here. Then I'll start to select all of these, S to scale, R to rotate, G to grab. It's all the same type of stuff as in edit mode when you're editing geometry in the 3D workspace. And I'm actually going to undo that because I forgot to add in my keyframe at the beginning here. So on frame 490, I want a keyframe that is about this big here. So we can press I, and that will add in our keyframe, but we can't see it here. And this starts to get into why I don't like this method. It's my least favorite method because it's a bit of a pain. So we can't see it here. So what we need to do is drag out another one here. I'm going to pull this all the way down so that we have the playback options. And then I'm going to change this one to the dope sheet. Now we still can't see it in the dope sheet. We can, if we uncheck this only show selected, we can see our previous keyframes for, if we drag this out in our summary, we can see these are our weighted tracks. So when we animated the weight going in and out, when we are solving our motion, that's what these are. But it's not even here that we're going to find what we're looking for. We need to click Dope Sheet and then change this to Mask. And there is our keyframe for the mask that we just set. So let's come over here, and here's our mask layer. If we click this, it will highlight it, which is nice. And then that's what this is here, this mask layer. And this keyframe is a keyframe for all of the points that are under this mask layer, which is just these 4 for now. So now we can drag this over here, and then same thing, we can S to scale. I can constrain it on the X-axis by pressing X. I can rotate it, something like that. And then I press I again, and we have our new keyframe. So now we go back and forth between these. And I notice that this is squishing too soon. So what I want to do is take this and duplicate it out until my head starts to turn maybe about right there. And so if I press Shift D to duplicate that, you see nothing appears to happen. Well, it has. I just have to also press G and move it like this, which is not something you have to do with any other animation timeline. Plus, these 2 keyframes we know are duplicates of each other, but you can't tell. So if I come back to the dope sheet, you can see that the duplicated keyframes have this bar in between them. So if I take this one and I Shift D to duplicate, first thing I can do is just drag it straight away, which I can't do with the mask keyframe timeline. But if I set it, you see you have this bar indicating that these 2 are duplicated keyframes. So I'm going to undo that. So just keep in mind that masking animation keyframes are completely different than anywhere else in Blender, which is super frustrating because it's very limiting. So anyway, we've got this now, and it stays that size until it hits this keyframe, and then it starts to squish and rotate like that. All right, so that looks pretty good. And then what I would want to do here is right before it completely goes out, just make sure that there's a keyframe on that. And then in the very previous one where you don't see anything anymore, I'm going to take all of these, grab them, and move them all the way over here. And then I for another keyframe. Why am I doing it this way? Now it's over here until it comes into frame, and then it snaps into frame, and then it follows that marker. Now you might say, well, why am I doing it this way instead of just animating the render, restrict renderability? Because I can, if I come up here and I press I can restrict the renderability and the visibility over here, and I can add keyframes on both of these. And the reason is because I can't see these keyframes. You can see there's no keyframe on the timeline from what we just did here, which means that the only way I would be able to find these keyframes is that if I scrub through the timeline until they change color. So right now they're green, which means there's a keyframe somewhere on the timeline, but we just don't know where. And then I have to wait until I hover over here. Oh, here we go, they turn yellow, and that is the keyframe. So I'm not going to do that this way. I'm going to right-click, clear keyframes on both of these. And we're just going to keep it this way, because we know when we move this over here, you can see that the keyframe is actually in this animation timeline. Okay, so then what I do is I finish the animation go this way, so I just watch it as it goes. And this one is actually pretty good for the rest of the time, because it doesn't really go out of the frame. Some of these other ones we're going to have to babysit quite a bit, which is super frustrating. Also, another reason why I don't like this method. There are quite a few reasons why I don't like this method, but it is traditional, so I figured we probably should cover it. And it can be pretty powerful if used in the right way. Okay, so this one is good. Let's save it. So on 490, I want to do another one. So a lot of times what I see people doing is taking the ones that they have and then Shift D to duplicate that. I don't recommend doing it this way, and there are a few reasons why. The first is that the keyframes that we already have set are going to affect this one, so even though we move it, it's going to snap right back to this one. Now, this happens even if we enable those patterns again, and I select this one, grab these and move them up, and then we can parent these ones to there, and then they snap over here. Let's grab those and move those back. So theoretically, it's supposed to stay up here because it's parented to this tracker, but for some weird reason, it doesn't. And the reason for the confusion is because these keyframes represent all of the points on this mask layer, regardless of how many there are. So if we do all of our splines on each of these markers on our face under one mask layer, this is going to get incredibly difficult and cumbersome because everything is going to be on one line and it's going to get really confusing, and if we have any problems, it's going to be hard to fix. But if I did want to keep these on this one mask layer, both of these, then what I'd have to do is I'd have to come over here, set this over here, and then on this one, press I. And an easy way to do this without having to go to each one of these and reset a keyframe is on this one, make sure that we deselect everything. So make sure we're on the frame where we have our initial keyframe where we want, and we can box select all of the other keyframes and then click this rekey shape points. And then that's going to reshape all of the points that we have on our screen and interpolate those all the way to the rest of the keyframes. So if we then move here, you can see that our new spline actually stays where it should. Of course, until the tracker stops tracking. And you notice when the tracker stops tracking, we've got the marker on my head continuing to move, but the spline just stays with the tracker, of course. So that's what you can do if for some reason you want two splines on the same mask layer. But like I said, it's not a good idea. So what we want to do instead is, and I'm going to move my screencast keys over here because I've got a lot going on over here. But what we want to do instead is add another mask layer by pressing this plus button here. Make sure it's selected. It should automatically select it for you, but if it doesn't, just select it. So you can see I can click back and forth between the selection here. And I can also select this one over here as well. Okay, and so now I'm going to show you another reason why I don't like this method is because if I take this here, I can copy these points. Actually, I haven't copied anything because I have this mask layer selected. And if I hide the first mask layer, you can see there's nothing on this mask layer. Not yet, at least. So I'm going to unhide this, select the first mask layer. These are the ones that are selected. I can press Control C to copy those. And then on this mask layer, I can press Control V to paste, and you can see it pasted it. Now they exist on both of them. So I'm going to hide this one and then select this one, and then we're going to delete these from here. So now I have one spline on each of these. However, as you can see, under our new mask layer, you can see we've copied the points, but we haven't copied any animation. So now there's no animation on these here, even though we have set keyframes, which should have been a duplicate of these up here. And so you might think, well, all we have to do is box select these and then Control C to copy. Oh, no, we get an error saying keyframe pasting is not available for mask mode. And there you go, yet another reason why I do not like this method. So the best practice is to make a mask layer for one spline each. So we're going to make a different mask layer for each one of these markers on my face. So we're going to have a whole bunch of mask layers, but that's going to help us keep track of them on our timeline, as well as animate them separately, select them separately, move them separately. And if you start right away doing that, you're going to run into fewer problems down the road. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start adding all of our splines to different mask layers first before we do any animation, so that we can just click and go when we're ready to animate. This is going to be a little tedious, but I'll show you the process here, and you can go in any order. There's no rhyme or reason to which one I'm going to do next, but I'll go ahead and select this one and then add a new mask layer. Shift right click to add the 2D cursor, and then Shift A to add in our circle. Then we just position it, parent it, and then that should be good. And then we just go on to the next one. So I'm going to do that again. So we just add a mask layer, select, Shift right click, Shift A, circle, position, parent. So this is going to be really tedious. I'm going to probably speed up the footage while I do all of these here. And sometimes it doesn't matter which order you do it in, so I can select it, then add a mask layer, or add a mask layer, then select. That really doesn't matter a whole lot, but definitely make sure that the mask layer is selected before you add in your spline. Oh, and it looks like I forgot to parent this, and that happens. So if you forget to parent, just go back and find out which one that is. That's mask layer 9. Then I will just click one of these, press L to select just the linked ones here. Oh, and I forgot to select this first. Okay, now I can box select or press L and then parent those. So it's a good idea to periodically check your work as you go along. Okay, so I've got all the ones that are front facing on 490. By the way, with these markers, we had previously set them up to where if we go to marker, we can jump to next marker using J, and then Alt J goes to the previous marker. So if you don't have those set up, just right click on one of them, and then you can choose change shortcut and then press whatever key you want. Just make sure it's not going to interfere with any other hotkeys that you might need. And the way I do it, I actually don't use like Alt J very much, like going backwards. If I need to go to one, I just click here and then J, or click here and then J, and that goes to the next one. Just a real quick way to get here. But I'm going to go to the next one here, and then I'll start to add the markers here on the side of my face on this frame. So let's see, okay, that one's this one, so we can add a new one, select, Shift right click, add in circle, scale that down, parent, and so on and so forth. All right, just double checking, testing the ones that I do have here. And of course, don't worry about the ones that when they lose their track, because that's just when the tracker is disabled. We'll fix that later. All right, so we've got all of them parented to their corresponding trackers. Don't forget to save. And we now have 34 mask layers for all of our trackers. But that is only the beginning. We have a long road ahead, and this is another reason why I do not like this method. It is so painstaking and tedious. So what we're going to have to do is go through every single one of these one at a time and babysit it all the way through the entire timeline. So the way I like to do this is we want to just disable these, and we can do this really quickly by clicking and holding our left mouse button and then dragging down and it will disable all of those. And we can scroll down, do it again, scroll down, do it again. All right, and then we can also disable our patterns, and then come up to start at the very top with this one, which I think we've already done. That was this mask layer. Yep, so that one's good. And so we'll disable that one and go to the next one. And then make sure we select this, and then we select this here. So we want to make sure that these are all matching. Layer 001, 001, and then we can just watch this one. Again, we have our screen locked to it, so that's going to be, if we don't have anything selected, it's not going to be locked to it. So if we press A to select all of those, then the view is going to be locked to those. Okay, so same thing here, maybe about right here. Well, we got to add our initial keyframe. And I'm going to make this a little bit easier at this stage by turning on auto key. And that way, any change we make, it's going to automatically make that key for us. Except for here, since I know here I want the same keyframe, I'm just going to press I to make that. And then when we get to maybe about, oh yeah, so this is where it loses the tracker. So I'm going to put a keyframe here. Actually, we're just going to adjust this to match that. And then that'll automatically put a keyframe there. And then on the very next frame, I'm also going to add in a keyframe because that is where the tracker is disabled. And then we'll have to just watch this. Here's maybe the last frame that's on. So we'll put that here. And yeah, that interpolates it all right. And then right before that frame, we'll have this, grab that and put this way out here. Make sure you put it way out here because once it re-enables to that tracker, it's going to start moving again, and we don't want it to move back onto the footage until we decide we want it to. So there we go, and then it snaps back on, but it's locked, so it's a little hard to see. Okay, so now we keep going the other way. And this one is just like the one we did before. We don't have to really do anything different, although maybe at the very end here, when I turn my head back around, this is going to be positioned a little bit better and a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to duplicate this one. Remember, it's Shift D and then G to grab. And we'll pull that maybe right over here. So that stays the same size until maybe right about there, and then it gets bigger. Okay, so save it, and then disable, select, enable, and then select number 2. And we'll go to frame 490 and do it all over again. So this is the workflow that I use. Now with these ones on the side of the head, they're going to require a lot more babysitting, and you'll see this here. So if we go this way, okay, this is when it is disabled. Well, always get our initial keyframe, keep forgetting that. And then we'll do another one. Actually, maybe right here, this is good, just the same size. And then from here to here, oh, right before it is disabled, right here. Let's squish this here a little bit. Remember, you can press X or Y when you scale, so scale on the X or Y if you want to constrain it to the axis. So from there to there, that looks good. And then another keyframe right when it's disabled, and then all the way until here. That looks good. And that's still on even to right there. It's a little hard to see. All the way to the beginning, because we can kind of see that in the beginning. Okay, so we're just going to keep that there like that. Yeah, that's fine. Awesome. Okay, now we go the other way. Again, a lot more babysitting, especially when those trackers are disabled, which is a bit of a pain, which should just shows how much they help us. So here, we'll do the same thing. We'll just kind of reposition it. You can also just select individual points and handles and stuff to reposition it how you want. So there we go, between these two. It's not too bad. And then right after, do one right after, and then that's gonna kind of make its way down like that. I don't want to put the mask onto the background. I want to try to keep it on that skin as tightly as possible. And this is where, oh man, it gets really tedious trying to babysit all of these. There are better ways. There are better ways than this, and we will go over them. Okay, and then this one's going to be off camera here until it comes back on. I always forget which one I'm working with. Okay, so it's going to come back on right where I'm going to see, we'll say there. So right before that, keyframe before that, I, and right after that, we grab that and move that. We can also press the period on the numpad to zoom in real quickly on that. And that's over here like this. And once again, just kind of, what I like to do is, so I set a keyframe here, and then I set a keyframe here, which on each of the keyframes they look pretty good, but in the middle it doesn't. So then I kind of go somewhere in the middle, and where I see it, it's kind of getting off, then I will reposition that. So then it starts to follow it a little bit better. Okay, and then there's a point in time where it snaps. Okay, it snaps there, so on the very next frame before that, I'm going to just position this a little bit better. Like that. And then right after it, where it snaps, now you would think that it would snap to this, but I made that mistake before. It actually jumped closer to this one, and it's actually this one that we're following. So it snapped and it moved it over here. And if you're zoomed in, you don't know that, and you might make a mistake. So just be careful which one, and know which one you're actually needing this to follow. Okay, it snaps there too. So just make sure that all of those are like right on the middle. There we go. So now it's tracked back on there. And that is okay. I'm gonna maybe make this a little bit bigger. Move this, wait, not there. On the keyframe, I wanted it on the keyframe. Oh, that's the other keyframe. I need to look at the green bar here. And I can also middle mouse and pull this up so that we can kind of get rid of all the clutter above it. But you can see how many keyframes this took to babysit. So that's just going to be your job. If you want to do it this way, this is what you're going to do. And you're going to do it on all of the ones, especially on the side of the head that disappear several times throughout the shot. The ones in the middle of the face, you're going to have a little bit easier of time with, except for the nose. The nose is going to give you a hard time. Actually, let's go ahead and do that one. I'll show you how I do it. And we got to find the one with the nose. So I'm just going to click and drag until the one with the nose pops up. So it's this one here, and then get rid of those. Okay, so this is how I would do it. Of course, create our keyframe here. We got to find it though. It's mask. Oh, see, I was on mask layer 2 selected, so I want to make sure I select mask layer 8 and make sure that's selected here so we know where that is. All right, so we've got this following, but then it detaches pretty quickly there, and it also detaches pretty quickly here. Like this was one of the hardest things to track, so I just disabled it, I think. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch its parent. So I don't think I can animate between the parents. So instead of parenting to this one. I want to parent it to this one up here. So I'm going to select these splines, and then let's show our patterns. Let's select this one and then parent it to that one instead. Make sure, again, on frame 490. So now it's going to follow the one above it. And it's not perfect, but it stays tracked for a lot longer, and it's going to require a lot less babysitting. And we could also do this, it doesn't have to follow this one particularly. We can make it follow our parent on this one or any of the other ones. But this one, I think it gives us the best motion. If you find another one does, go for it. But we've got our keyframe here. Let's just do that again. And then I'm going to make it follow till we see here. Scale that down. All right. And so now we have it good on both of the keyframes, but in the middle we don't, because we actually don't want it to change until my head starts moving, which is about right there. So just take this one, Shift D, then G to move that here, and then we can modify it just a little bit there. So now it kind of follows and stays like right there. And that actually might be too big initially anyway for this one. Let's just reposition that keyframe, and then I'm gonna delete this one. Just double tap A to make sure nothing is selected. Select that one, delete, because you wouldn't want to delete all of your keyframes that you've got so far. Let's duplicate this one again and move it over here, and then up here. And then even in the middle here, see, this is, yeah, just make sure that follows a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to actually move this keyframe to here. You can also snap. If I Shift S, I can snap selection to current frame. That's helpful. And the very one before that, then we'll pull this out over here. So that's not looking too bad there. And now I'm going to move it. So when my head starts to move, I'm going to do another keyframe, and then right before frame 490 is where my head pretty much is finished turning. So I'll put that here, maybe drag this in a little bit, reshape that, that's good. Just follow that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put another keyframe here, and then kind of watch it till it's like right here. And then let's go in between the in-between frames. Yeah, this needs to be right here on this frame like that. All right. And we just keep going like that. Got to go this way again. Bet you just love looking at my big nose here. So on this frame, I want to rekey this frame to these two. So just only select these two and then rekey shape points. Kind of moving a little warbly, but that's all right. As long as it sticks to the nose like it should, it follows it like it should, yeah, it's not too bad. So there you go. That's how you would do something like that. I'm not going to do the entire thing here. You just keep going mask layer by mask layer, babysitting all of the ones that go out of the frame, animating them out and then back in. But I already completed this whole thing, so I'm not going to do it again, but I'll show you the final result. Okay, and you should have something that looks like this when you're finished. You can see all of my different mask layers and keyframes here. You can see if I scrub through, you can see all of the splines coming in and going out. So when you're finished, you should see something that looks like this, and you may even notice some problems. So let's look at some of these problems. So you can see right here, we didn't really key these right, because you can see this mask starts here and then it just starts slowly flying out. We don't want that. We want it to be a sudden jump. So we need to find this. So basically the way you do that is just find and click until this disappears, which I should have known it was probably down here more. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. Okay, there, that was the second to the bottom. So I'm just going to disable some of these around here. And then second one from the bottom, let's see, that is mask layer 33. So I'm just going to go there and we will find where it is. Okay, so it's between these two keyframes here. So I'm going to just grab this keyframe and pull it right after that one. So it snaps, it just jumps. It doesn't fly out. Okay, so fix that. And we got to fix a couple more of these too, I believe. Let's see. That one's okay. But you can see how this one is moving a little bit because it's still parented. But it's not giving us any trouble because it's not going into the frame. I think there's one over here that is going into the frame. So let's enable all of these over here. And I think it's, yeah, right there. So we got one, that's another one flying out. So we got to figure out where that one is. Oh, let's see. There we go. It is mask layer 20. So let's enable that and go to mask layer 20. And that one is just one extra frame. So just bring that in. Okay, that's all right. We might actually take this and move, oops, just this one. Double tap A, box select those, just move that out further. Okay, and actually another way we can look to find some of these is we can go to our overlay again, and then we can uncheck spline. We can see all of them. And you can see the result also that we're going after. So here is our masks. And we're going to use this information to get rid of the markers on our face. So I think there was one that was just floating over here. I can't remember where. Well, I don't see any over here, but I did find another one that was flying off over there. This one up here. So let's go figure out what that one is. That would be this one. 27. All right. Bring this one closer. So it just snaps off. There we go. Don't forget to save it as you go. There it is at the very end here. This one coming in. Mask layer 10. Okay. And so this is why I was saying before that even if you do animate them, having them come out, once they start parenting to the tracker again, with the motion of the head, it pulls it back into frame. So you just got to be careful with that. So all we're going to do is find out where that comes out initially, where that goes out here, which it should just snap. There we go. It should be this one here. Right here. So I'm just going to replace this keyframe here just by moving this out, and it's auto key, so it's going to auto key all the way over here. So that now when my head moves, it's not going to pull that back into frame because it's too far out. And then it will snap back, or not. Maybe it won't snap back. Oh yeah, we should probably make it snap back. So let's find out where I want that to come back in. maybe right here. So I keyframe next frame, then we can start to grab that and move that back over here. And it's going to be really small here like that. And animate it all the way over here. Perfect. Okay, let's enable all of these here and then our overlays. And that's what it looks like. Let's go ahead and play. All right, so that is the traditional way to make 2D masks so that we can use these later in compositing to remove our face markers. Now we will go over that in another video, but before we do that, I'm going to show you a much better way to achieve the same result. It's going to be less tedious and, in my opinion, way more fun. So when you're ready, head on over to the next one.